Welcome to a series where we talk about the World Cup histories of each nation of the 2026 World Cup. Today we'll be talking about one of the debutantes at North America 2026 and one of the most obscure countries at the tournament. Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, who, depending on who you ask, I guess, they've been pretty decent at soccer for a surprisingly long, time, but the expansion to 48 teams has finally let them make their breakthrough and qualify ahead of Cameroon. Maybe this serves as an argument in favor of the 48-team expansion. Let's go through their history and their journey to the Promised Land. I'll be straight up, this isn't going to take long. Cape Verde was a part of Portugal until 1975, when they became independent, but becoming a member of FIFA was pretty low on the island nation's checklist. They would join FIFA in 1986, over a decade after independence, and yet it took all the way until Korea-Japan 2002 that Cape Verde would finally attempt World Cup qualification for the first time. In this campaign, Cape Verde would be matched up against Algeria in a two-legged playoff with a spot in the groups on the line, and even though Algeria was kind of down around this time, there was enough there for the Fenix to draw 0-0 in Praia and take care of business back home, winning 2-0 to eliminate Cape Verde from World Cup contention for the very first time. We move on to Germany 2006, and I've talked about how nuts this campaign was for African qualifying as a whole. Cape Verde would get in on the fun by actually winning a playoff this time, albeit against a much worse team than Algeria and Swaziland, the national team now known as Eswatini. Cape Verde would draw 1-1 in La Bamba and come home to win 3-0 and move on to the groups for the first time. In the groups, the Blue Sharks would be drawn with South Africa, DR Congo, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Uganda. In the groups, things started shockingly well. A competitive loss in Bloemfontein was followed by a home win against Uganda and then a home draw against DR Congo. After losing Kumasi to Ghana, they would come home again and posted a second win, this one against Burkina Faso. Cape Verde now sat on 7 points halfway through the groups, a super respectable total that had them in 4th place, only 2 points behind leading South Africa. In their 6th game, a win in the return leg in Ouagadougou put them on 10 points, now in 2nd place in the group. But this would be their high water mark for the campaign. Losses by 1 goal in each of their next 3 games eliminated them from contention. They would eventually finish with 10 points in 5th place. Still a respectable finish that gave them hope for the future. For South Africa 2010, Cape Verde would be drawn into a group with Cameroon, Tanzania, and Mauritius, with the winner and possibly 2nd place moving on to the final group stage. A 2-0 loss in Yaoundé was expected to open the campaign, but things went well from there. 2 wins and 2 against Mauritius and a win against Tanzania that got them to 9 points with 2 games to go, only 1 point behind Cameroon with the home leg upcoming. Unfortunately, they shit the bed in Praia, losing a halftime lead by conceding 2 second-half goals and losing 2-1 to fall out of contention for first place. What's even worse is they would lose their final group game against Tanzania in a game where a win would have seen Cape Verde through as one of the better second-place teams. Instead, this loss left them on just 3 points in their last 4 games against the top 2 in their group, and that left them second from the bottom in the runner-up table. Cape Verde would be eliminated before the final group stage and would not be going to Africa's World Cup. We move on now to Brazil 2014, and Cape Verde would hope the World Cup entering the Lusosphere would inspire some good luck. They would be drawn into a pretty manageable group with Tunisia, Sierra Leone, and Equatorial Guinea, with the winner advancing to the playoffs, and obviously the Carthage Eagles were the main ops here. This group started terribly for the Blue Sharks, who lost in Freetown to Sierra Leone, and then came home and lost to Tunisia. With 0 points out of 2 games, the Islanders already sat 6 points behind Tunisia, and things went from bad to worse when the Cabo Verdeans lost a 4-3 thriller in Malabo to Equatorial Guinea. With the campaign literally all over, Cape Verde was bailed out when Equatorial Guinea ended up having to forfeit both their games against Cape Verde due to the ineligibility of striker Emilio Nsue, something that will come up for that nation again in the future. Having been granted a lifeline, Cape Verde would play their 5th game in Praia in front of their home fans, and they were able to beat Sierra Leone 1-0. Once again, Equatorial Guinea threw the Islanders a lifeline by drawing at home against Tunisia, keeping Cape Verde in the hunt and not having to forfeit this result, thankfully. This set up a win-or-die match in Tunisia on the final match day, and this game would not disappoint. Against a nation that had qualified for 3 of the previous 4 World Cups in their own home stadium, Cape Verde would spring for 2 first-half goals from a dude who went by Platini and a dude who went by Heldon. Ahead 2-0, the defense would hold on and the Sharks were swimming to the playoffs, with a chance to reach Brazil on the line. Except, oops, Fernando Varela had been suspended for 4 games due to an early incident, and had not sat out those 4 games when he participated in this one. And ironically, Cape Verde would have to forfeit this result when a previous forfeiture had benefited them. This one did not. It cost them everything, and it allowed Tunisia to reach the playoffs where they would lose to Cameroon. Still, by this point, Cape Verde had already become a well-respected country in African football, and that genuinely means something. As a fan of the US national team, I know how CONCACAF is, where there's a steep decline in quality among the teams once you get outside the top 8 or 10. Asia is more or less the same. That's not how Africa is. I don't think people realize how deep this continent is as far as talent and national team quality. This continent easily goes 20 or so teams deep as far as decent teams go, and routinely good teams miss out on qualifying for the World Cup due to just how vicious this confederation can be. Just ask Egypt. The fact that Cape Verde have already ingratiated themselves in that hierarchy and given themselves a shot to be on the qualification conversation is a credit to how well run their federation is in comparison to others in Africa. We're on to Russia 2018, where Cape Verde would begin their campaign with a playoff against Kenya, one that they would come back and win after losing 1-0 in Nairobi thanks to 2 goals from Heldon back home. After coming back to defeat Kenya, Cape Verde would reach the group stages, where they were drawn with Senegal, South Africa, and Burkina Faso. 2-0 losses in Dakar to Senegal and at home against Burkina Faso was a horrible start, but Cape Verde would rebound with home and away wins against South Africa. This pushed Cape Verde briefly to the top of the table, tied with Burkina Faso on 6 points for literally one day before Senegal would see one of their defeats turned into a win by a forfeiture. This ruling turned Cape Verde's penultimate game at home against Senegal into a must-win. Because if they lost this game, their chances of winning the group were over. The game sat at 0-0 well into the second half, reaching the 82nd minute before Diafra Sakho finally broke through for Senegal. The Lions of Teranga would eventually win 2-0, eliminating Cape Verde and eventually winning the group to break through for their second World Cup appearance ever. We move on to Qatar 2022, and Cape Verde had fallen a bit in their rankings. They were drawn into a group with Nigeria, Central African Republic, and Liberia, with the Super Eagles very much being the favorites in this group. Cape Verde's campaign would start poorly with a draw in Douala against the Central Africans, then they blew a lead at home and eventually lost 2-1 to Nigeria. These guys are seriously incapable of having good starts to their groups. They were in danger of drawing in Accra against Liberia as well, only finding a winner in stoppage time via Gary Rodriguez. Another late winner helped them beat Liberia at home in their next game, this time through Ryan Mendez. They somehow continued this winning streak by getting another relatively late winner to beat Central African Republic. This time in the 75th minute from a dude named Stapira. This is somehow the second player I've mentioned in this video, nicknamed after a French international. It's definitely a Doofenshmirtz moment if I've ever seen it. It's random as fuck, and it's a nice little preview for the next video in this series. But it kept Cape Verde alive going into their final game against Nigeria. If they were able to somehow get a win in Lagos, they would win the group ahead of Nigeria and advance to the playoffs, but they weren't able to. Victor Osimhen scored immediately, and while Stapira got that goal back immediately, the game would finish 1-1 after this with 85 minutes of scorelessness. This let Nigeria get through to the playoffs where they would blow it against Ghana. So yeah, Cape Verde has been a pretty good team that's gotten some good results at AFCON during this time, but has never been able to make a splash in African qualifiers. Not yet, at least. For North America 2026, with the number of tickets given to African teams nearly doubled, teams like Cape Verde all of a sudden had a much better shot at qualifying. This chance got even better when the group draw came in, and Cape Verde was matched with Cameroon, Angola, Libya, Eswatini, and Mauritius. This is basically a 1v1 against Cameroon, and while the indomitable Lions had a good team with guys like Brian Mbeumo and Frank Nguissa, among others, this is manageable for a team that's never been in as good a position to qualify as this. Raise your hand if you've heard this one before, but this didn't start super well for Cape Verde. The first 2 games weren't a disaster, although a 0-0 draw at home with Angola is a bad result, and winning 2-0 in Mbombela against Eswatini really didn't do much for me either. A 4-1 loss to Cameroon in their third game was kind of a disaster, but to be fair to them, they would post back-to-back 1-0 wins at home against Libya and Mauritius after this. 10 points midway through the group isn't amazing, but it was surprisingly enough for the Cape Verdeans to lead the group, thanks to Cameroon dropping points with draws against Eswatini, Angola, and Libya. Games 6 and 7 were both on the road, and Cape Verde was able to win both of these in Luanda and Saint-Pierre to maintain their pace as first place in the group. Game 8 couldn't be bigger, as they would be hosting Cameroon, who they were still 1 point ahead of. A win here would put them in the driver's seat to win the group and qualify, and with a 54th minute goal from Delon Livramento, Cape Verde would take a 1-0 lead and the defense would hold on. This was a monumental result for Cape Verde because it put them 4 points ahead with just 2 games to go. A draw in Tripoli against Libya kept the door open for Cameroon going into the last match day, with Cape Verde 2 points ahead going into their home game against bottom of the table Eswatini. In the end, it didn't matter what Cameroon did. Cape Verde won 3-0 with goals from Livramento, Stapira, and Willy Semedo. For the very first time, Cape Verde was in the World Cup. I'm so happy this random ass island nation made it to the World Cup. I love stories like this, and we need more islands making the World Cup. In their World Cup debut, Cape Verde will start in a group with 2 former World Cup champions, Spain and Uruguay, as well as Saudi Arabia. Now, the Verdeans are probably screwed here, I'll admit, but I've seen weirder things happen in this sport than Cape Verde getting an upset winning in Saudi Arabia. If they're also able to get a point off La Celeste, that would be enough right there to make the knockouts. It's not that far-fetched. Is that what's going to actually happen, though? This is where I do my group predictions, and I don't have anything that crazy here, I'm not going to lie. I have Spain and Uruguay both winning their first matches, with Spain also beating Saudi Arabia in the second match day. I do have Cape Verde nicking that point off the Uruguayans, giving them a chance going into the final match day, where I have Spain destroying Uruguay to take the group with 9 points of 9, and I have Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia drawing in the other game. This finishes Uruguay in second place going through, has the Saudis out in fourth place, and that means Cape Verde finishes third place on 2 points, currently last place in the third place group table, and also certainly being eliminated from the World Cup as well. Thank you all for watching video number 32 out of 48. We're 2/3 of the way there, and we would have been done pre-expansion. We're not pre-expansion though, and we have 16 more videos to post, and tomorrow is one of the biggest ones left. Tomorrow we talk about France and their insane history at the World Cup. Seriously, those guys are always up to something. I hope y'all enjoyed this little video, and I hope y'all keep watching for a video that's going to be like 5 times the length of this.